Good morning, dear students. Today we will start with Unit 4. In Unit 1, we discussed what exactly research is, right? What is the research process? How would you define the problem definition and what kind of researches are available basically. Then in Unit 2, we discussed what are the basic research designs available and how would you handle the data kind of the things, like how would you design those research designs. For example, would you be going with exploratory research design or with some kind of research designs which are actually causal, or would you be going for survey research? And survey also would be with either it would be a personal interview or telephonic interview, or you will be conducting survey with the help of internet surveys, or it would be observation method or experimental method, some things like that basically how you will be conducting the research, right? Then in unit 3 we discussed sampling designs, that how would you design the sample, and then how would you actually collect the data, how would you design tools for collection of the data, for example attitude measurements, questionnaire design. Then how would you validate them, reliability and validity concepts, right? All them. Now at this stage we have started our research, we know much about research now, we have collected the whole data. Now it is the stage of data analysis. Unit 4 is all about analysis of data. So we will be start till now we have just collected the data, right? Now we will discuss how to make this data usable, that is basically editing. There are 4 steps of data analysis. One is, first step is editing, then coding, then data entering, and then data analysis, right? So we'll be first discussing how to edit the data, how to make the data usable, then how will you code it so as to to easily analyze the data. Then how will you enter the data in the system so as to get it 100%, or at least get it up to the maximum accuracy. Then data analysis is completely whole thing, like we will be discussing different ways of data analysis. It will take at least minimum 7-8 presentations minimum of just data analysis. We will be discussing data editing in one presentation, then data coding in another one, then we will start with data analysis from third or fourth presentation, and we will be discussing the whole data analysis. For example, you can start with descriptive statistics. You are just describing the data with the help of mean, median, and mode. Then univariate statistics, when you have single variable, you are talking about univariate, one variable. Then bivariate analysis, then test of differences are there. For example, you talk about t-test and ANOVA when it comes to test of differences in between any two things, or measures of association you can talk about. Then introduction to multivariate analysis, this includes correlation, regression, factor analysis, discriminant analysis, conjoint analysis, so many analyses are there. Then final step would be report writing. Our last presentation would be on report writing. So this is how we'll be going with chapter 4. uh, you can say editing, then coding, then data analysis, 7-8 presentations on data analysis, and then in the last we will be discussing how to write the report effectively. So let us start with data editing now. Yes, like I mentioned, errors in stages of data collection, stages of data collection. Number 1, editing, then coding, then data entry, and then data analysis. And error checking and verification would go along with all the steps. Like at the time of editing also, you'll be checking the errors and you'll be verifying them properly. At the time of coding also, you do the same thing. At the time of data entry also, you do the same thing. Then only you get the maximum accurate data possible at the time of data collection, when you do error checking it, all these steps. Yes. Information refers to the body of facts that are in a format suitable for decision making. Information available is also one thing. after the data analysis, sometimes we get to have some, some tables, some data in the form of tables, so that we can just have a look and then decide that yes, this is to, this is to be done for this particular thing, right? It's easy to decide after that. For example, I have information related to 1,000 employees of my company, and it is just randomly available. And one thing is, if I make them in a tabulation, like for example, I want to check their educational degrees, then I can just do one thing. I can just check how many employees are 12th pass, how many employees are graduated, how many employees have done post graduation, how many employees have done PhD. And then you can just know that yes, I have 100 people who have done PhDs, I have 500 people who reached to the level of masters, I have 400 people who have done graduation, and out of those 400, 200 have done PTech, and 100 are BCom, 100 are BA, like that. That is called tabulated information, and we call that as data as well. Example, data are simply recorded measures of certain phenomena. But when you edit it and when you code it in some way and transfer it to the Excel sheet, that is readily available for data analysis now. Editing. It is actually the process of checking and adjusting data for omissions, for legibility, and for consistency, and reading them for coding and storage. So basically, editing is checking the data and then adjusting them accordingly, so as to make them available, make them usable for data analysis. And we will be checking the data for three things: omissions. Sometimes while data entry, we leave, we by chance we enter some wrong data. For example, somebody's date of birth is, for example, 1988, and you entered by mistake 1987 or 1989. That is a kind of mistake we do sometimes, right? For example, your sample is such that 17 that it was filled from those people who are above 18 years of age, right? And somebody just by chance clicked write it as like 17 or something like that. Then it is also a kind of example of legibility, omission, consistencies this way. So you have to check data, so that to reduce errors in data and get it ready for data analysis. So let us check it for omissions, legibility, and consistency. Or you can even say, if you are basically editing the data so as to make it accurate, make it consistent with the whole thing, and uniformly entering the data is also one thing which is related to editing. And sometimes to make questionnaires complete, sometimes some people leave one or two questions just like that, they don't take the answers. Then you have to actually edit them. Then sometimes to arrange the data in a way so as to make it usable for data analysis. Yes, this is one of the examples of data editing. Birth year recorded by the interviewer maybe 1873, but actually it was 1973, right? In that case, it's very simple. You would not find a person who was born in 1873 these days. If you find, you will easily recognize and you will remember it, that yes, this was the person, right? But otherwise it must be 1973 rather than 1873. So these are little corrections which are to be done in the process of data editing. Editing can be divided in two parts. One is field editing, another one is in-house editing. And both of them are very important. Maximum number of times both of them are to be done when a research is conducted by a research agency. In-house editing is a rigorous editing job performed by centralized office staff. You have the whole staff and they will be doing the job for you. For example, editing for consistency. The in-house editor's task is to ensure that the inconsistent or contradictory responses are adjusted and the answers will not be a problem for codes and keyboard operators. Sometimes you just right make questions and answers might be subjective. Then this in-house editor will clarify this, like how what kind of the questions will go in which kind of the entry, right? He might make 5 to 10 categories and you will be entering data accordingly. Then this is for the purpose of consistency, so as to get the data analysis done easily. Then your field editing. Field editing is basically done most of the times for the purpose of all the things. One is technical omissions, then check legibility of handwriting and clarify and validate responses for all the reasons. Technical omissions are like I just discussed the example of date of birth, year of birth, right? 1873 and 1973. These kind of the problems are there. And sometimes, for example, at the time of filling of questionnaire, one person just left one question just like that by mistake, you can say. For example, you ask them, does your organization have more than one internet website? He did not tick any option, either yes, neither yes, no. But in some place he mentioned 3 websites used by the company. That means their company uses more than one website, and the answer is yes. For these kind of things also we go with technical omissions. Then check legibility of handwriting. Sometimes we do not understand the handwriting of the interviewer who has recorded the responses. For that also we go for editing, so as to get it done as soon as it is possible. And this is done by the interviewer himself, right? So he can easily do it, because once the questionnaires are in the hand of somebody else, they might not be able to recognize the handwriting, and the interviewer knows it. That is why he'll be doing it more beautifully. Then clarify and validate responses. Sometimes it happens that the person has replied you for the answer, and he by chance did not click anything, any of the option given by you. And sometimes there are hesitancies in the mind of respondents, so they don't reply sometimes. But when you were talking to the person, as interviewer, that what kind of the response he has given, and accordingly you can clarify a few things in the questionnaire and validate the responses. Then what are the reasons of editing? Yes, again the same reasons. One is consistency. There should be a consistency in the answers of respondent. Then completeness of the questionnaire. This is very, very important. If your questionnaire is not complete, then you might get the distorted results in the end, and this would not lead you anywhere. Then questions answered out of order. Yes, like we just discussed the example of age and year of birth. This is, of course, this was out of order answer, 1873 year of birth, and then we can rectify them in this way. But when this is to be done, because when you enter the data in the software, it would show you all the time, show you errors all the time, and it would distort the analysis. That is why we go for such editing. Like we have to complete the questionnaire, we have to check the consistency of all the answers by the respondents, and we have to check whether they have answered any question out of the order, or if they have left something just like that and they are answering the similar question uh, uh, more rigorously, then sometimes we get the answer from that question as well. That is also one of the reasons for editing. For example, please indicate your current military status. Now person has checked on 2 boxes, active duty and retired. This is not done, right? So in that case editing is very important. when you were talking to the respondent, you know that what kind of the answers he replied, and when you go and check in the evening that what kind of the answers you got from the respondent, now you know that how he replied and what was his actual status, whether it was active duty or retired, right? So now you'll be able to get it rectified. So this is a kind of job by the field editor. Or editing for completeness, I just discussed the same example with you. Does your organization have more than one internet website? Yes or no? If yes, how many? Sometimes what happens is the person has replied you, the person has told you that how many websites their organization is using, but he by chance left this question, right? So you can complete this particular question with the help of the other question where he has mentioned that the company is using 3 websites. Maybe some other question was there which was able to answer this also. So this is also done for completeness sometimes. Otherwise it would be a kind of item known response, and it is basically technical term for unanswered question. This is an unanswered question if I have not checked anything and I have not replied here as well, right? So uh, uh, we we include this as an item known response, and we need to complete all the questionnaires, and that is why we are going for such editing. Then editing should facilitate the coding process. Yes, till now we have just discussed that yes, editing is done for your consistency, this is done for completeness, this is done for technical omissions, right? This is done for unanswered questions, or this is done for out of order answers, right? Everything. But yes, editing should always facilitate the coding process. This is also one of the process, one of the reason of editing. Sometimes you decide the coding for at the time of editing, then you start with editing. Every circle response is clearly definable. Then a response that overlaps two numbers should be judged correctly by the editor. Sometimes we just provide the multiple choice answers. We provide multiple options for a question, and sometimes we realize it later that two answers were overlapping, and then in the end we will be able to we just when we realize that yes, these two answers were overlapping, then we'll be editing them accordingly, and we'll be coding in the same way so as to get clarified from that overlapping thing. Then edit missing information and determine if the answer is don't know or not certain. Sometimes the person knows the answer, and sometimes don't know is also you know is different. We'll discuss it in next slide that how a don't know should be accumulated. So these are also the thing, like you will be doing this for the missing information and for the don't knows answers. For example, how was it, whether it was a legitimate don't know, whether it was a reluctant don't know, or it was confused don't know. And when you talk to the respondent and as an interviewer, then you'll know that how what kind of don't know he was telling you, and accordingly you will be completing the questionnaire now for don't know. Then editing and tabulating don't know answers, how would you handle them? The approximate value of a home could be derived from a knowledge of the zip code and the average value of homes within that area. Yes. So the same way you will be you'll be doing this. Record all don't know answers as a separate category. This is one thing. Or eliminate the don't know answers from the percentage base. You can do that also. Or distribute don't know answers among the other categories, usually on a proportionate basis. Or you can do one more thing, that is to be done by the field editor, that at the end, after the filling of the questionnaire, you can decide what kind of don't know it was, and you can fill the answer accordingly. That can also be done. That's it. That's all about editing. Now let us discuss some true false. Number one, raw data are the facts that are in a form suitable for a decision. What it is false. Raw data are the unedited response from a respondent exactly as indicated by that respondent and may not be in a form that lends itself well to data analysis. So it is false. Technology has reduced errors by checking for inconsistencies automatically. Yes, it has happened. So it is true. Third is an important part of the editing, coding, and filling stages of data analysis is checking for errors. Is it? Yes, this is very important. So it is true. Fourth is missing value is the technical term for items left blank. Is it? It is the item known response for the technical term for items left blank. So it is false. Fifth is the purpose of editing is to ensure that the data are complete, consistent, and readable. Is it? Yes, true. Sixth is a data editor may have to reconstruct data. Yes, he has to most of the times when it is, data is not handleable. So it is true. Seventh is a field supervisor checks for technical omissions such as blank pages on an interviewer form. Yes, he has to check it. So it is true. Eighth is in-house editing rigorously investigates the results of data collection. Is it? Yes, it rigorously investigates. So it is true. Some self-assessment questions. Number one, define field editing and list the three things a field supervisor is looking for when conducting field editing. Field editing is basically preliminary editing, you can say, by a field supervisor on the same day as the interview to catch technological omissions, check legibility of handwriting, and clarify the responses that are logically or conceptually, you can say, inconsistent. So you can just list these three things: your technical omissions, checking of legibility of handwriting, and then clarifying the responses which are logically inconsistent. And you can define these things with the help of examples we have discussed in the presentation. Second is explain how researchers handle missing data. There are a lot of techniques to handle missing data. In many situations, the decision rule is to do nothing with the missing data and simply leave the item blank, right? However, when the relationship between two questions is important, the editor may be tempted to insert a plug value. If so, several choices are available. For example, first we already says that we have already discussed that leave the response blank, right? Second is plug in alternate choices for missing data. You can decide alternate choices for missing data as per the answer, as per the other question to which it is related. Randomly select an answer. Yes, you maximum number of times it is done that you randomly select an answer, or impute a missing value based on the respondent's choice to other questions. You can do that also. This is also done in many cases. It depends on the kind of study you are doing, kind of research you are going with. Last is compare and contrast list-wise deletion and pair-wise deletion methods for handling missing data and discuss which one is used most today. List-wise deletion is a method in which the entire record for a respondent that has left a response missing is excluded from use in statistical analysis. That is list-wise deletion. Or when it comes to pair-wise deletion, it is a method in which only the actual variables for a respondent that do not contain information are eliminated from the use in statistical analysis and is most used these days. The issue of missing data used to be a bigger deal years ago when some statistical software programs required complete data for statistical computations analysis to take place. Using pairwise deletion will only show non-response on the particular variable a respondent has left blank. As a result, this method produces a larger effective sample size than list-wise deletion. So we always want to go with larger sample size. That is why we go with pairwise deletion method. That's it. Thank you. Our next presentation would be on coding, that how do we code the question, the answers of a question. We have multiple choice questions, we have questions which can have answers from just yes no, we have questions which include categories. So accordingly we'll be deciding how to code for different questions.